As an aspiring entrepreneur, you're going to need money to start your business. And that money, unless you're independently wealthy, is going to come from one of two places: either institutional investors, venture capitalists and angel investors, or the three F's: family, friends, and fans. In either case, you're going to need to convince those people to give you their money to invest in your idea. So how are you going to do that? You can try to wing it. That's the wrong way to go. Instead, use the same approach that Uber has used, Facebook has used, LinkedIn has used, and thousands of other smaller businesses. And that is the pitch deck. The pitch deck is a very standard approach that's used by hundreds of people, and this is what investors are expecting to hear, and in this order that I'm going to give you. Now, I'm going to use Airbnb as an example because I think they did a terrific job. Of course, you're going to have a cover sheet. Some people put too much here. This is not your elevator pitch. This is just a holding until you start your presentation. The second thing, and the most important place to start, is what is the problem that we're trying to solve? In some cases, you can describe it as an opportunity, but it's harder for people to picture an opportunity than it is to see a problem that they can identify with. In the case of Airbnb, the country was going into a recession at that time, and so it was easy to explain how some people wanted to make some extra money and how some people were trying to save some extra money. And not staying in hotels was a way of doing that. The solution. The solution page should be 3 or 4 max in terms of the characteristics or features that your product or your enterprise is going to offer to solve the problem or to address the opportunity that you just talked about. In the case of Airbnb, I love what they did, and that is they did 2 financial aspects and 1 very intangible, talking about culture, market analysis. This gets a little tricky. In fact, I'm going to do another video on how to determine the size of your market. But the idea is here that this is the total market, and then we can get this slice because we're different in some way. Some people exaggerate on this page, and that's a dangerous, dangerous thing to do. Scenarios. Now, Airbnb didn't do this, but most pitch decks have a scenario slide which says, here's the best case, here's what we expect to have happen, and this is the worst case. Investors care about this because they're doing a risk analysis. How good could it be versus how bad could it be? Airbnb stayed away from this, I think, because they didn't want to go down the rat hole of, if this doesn't work, how bad could it be? A product demo. Airbnb just put 1 slide in that basically showed their process. Oftentimes you need a product demo to show what your product or service is going to do. If you demo, you want to be like Steve Jobs. If you remember Steve Jobs when he launched the famous iPhone.
And so I got some great images, and you get to see what it really looks like. So I've got a camera here so you can see what I'm doing with my finger for a few seconds. And let me go ahead and get that picture within picture up. I'm going to go ahead and just push the sleep wake button, and there we go, right there. And to unlock the phone, I just take my finger and slide it across. All right, you want to see that again? Go to sleep. We wanted something that you couldn't do by accident in your pocket, and just slide it across.
In fact, the iPhone did not have enough memory to do all the things that he said it could do. So when he launched it, he actually on the podium had 4 different iPhones, each one that could only do one of the functions. So as he was demonstrating the iPhone, he would set the phone down and talk a bit, and then he'd pick the phone up, but it's actually picking up another phone. And then he would show another function. He'd put that down and pick up another one. He rehearsed this over and over again, so it was flawless, and the demonstration came off perfectly. Now, contrast that with Elon Musk when he launched his truck and the famous armor glass.
Franz, could you try to break this glass, please? Yeah.
Sure?
Yeah. Oh my fucking God. Well, maybe that was a little too hard.
And he invited someone to take a rock and throw it at the glass to show how tough it was and it wouldn't break. Well, in fact, it broke. So he said, well, try it again on a different window. And it broke again. This was a terrible product demo. If you're going to do a demo, make sure the demo works. There are so many cases where people have gone to do the demonstration and it hasn't been rehearsed. If you're really unsure of it, then film it so that then you're confident that the demonstration is what you want them to see. Business model. People want to know how are you going to make money. Think of the Shark Tank and the one judge, Kevin O'Leary, who is also known as Mr. Wonderful. This is the page that he's going to look at most carefully. What is your basic plan to make money with your solution? Marketing. This is your go-to-market strategy. If you look at Airbnb, they had a very simple plan. Two things. One was partnerships, and all those partnerships worked out, except for Kayak, which I bet they both regret not signing that deal. And the other one was events, and that is having events where they could demonstrate their product. But the question is, how are you going to go to market? How are you going to get clients and customers? Investors want to know who is the other team that we're playing against, and what are the advantages that we have. I love the way Airbnb did it because using a matrix, it's real easy to see where their niche is versus the other players. I've seen pitch decks where people have these complex Excel sheets with attributes and competitors, and it's like an eye chart. Stay away from that. The team. Some investors want to know, who is it I'm investing in? And some people want to say, this is who I am. If you do a team chart, make sure you only do the top 2 or 3 founding people and not your whole team. Everybody has wonderful people. That's not the point. Who are the couple people that I'm trusting in? And I want to know who they are. Traction and milestones. This is where you want to show what's the progress of my business going to be. Don't make it over complex. What are the key gates that I have to get past and achieve in order to have success? Financials. By the time you get to this page, most investors have already made up their mind whether they want to invest or not. So think of the financials page as not explaining the whole financials, but instead reinforcing the positive story that you have to tell of how you're going to make money. If you use this type of pitch deck, 2 things. One is it's short, it's direct, and this is what investors are used to seeing. I hope you're able to use the pitch deck.